My son didn't get a 5th grade teacher. My junior in high school did not get a science teacher. There is no college and career counselor for my junior in high school. We waited over a year to be evaluated for special education. Those are my stories, but those are the stories of Texans across this state, parents who are just trying to get the best education they can for our kids. It's never been like this before. I need everyone to understand how dire the situation is. And what that means is that this will be the public education session for better or for worse. Either we step up and do what needs to be done to help our teachers give our kids the best education they have, to do our part to give full funding to our Texas public school classrooms. And let me tell you what I mean about full funding. Let me tell you what it looks like today. Today, Texas ranks at the bottom. There are only 2 other states that spend less than Texas in per pupil funding. We rank about $8,000 below the national average for teacher pay raise. We are one of only 6 states that doesn't fully fund our schools by funding every student. Instead, we say we're only going to fund the students that show up all of the time. We deduct funding. We punish our schools, our classroom, and our kids by deducting funding when kids are absent. My son, 3 weeks ago, had COVID. He was absent for a week. First semester, he had COVID, absent for a week. In my house, you have to be really sick to miss 2 days because of quarantine requirements. You have to be out for a week of school now. That's going to impact teaching and learning in the classroom. Kids have to be caught up. They need more resources, and it's going to be a direct hit to our bottom line because of the way we inequitably fund schools in the state of Texas. And please understand that the voucher scheme our governor is proposing is no ticket out for working families, no ticket out for our kids who need the best education that this state promises to offer. It is not a parent's choice. It is a school's choice under the governor's voucher plan. The school chooses whether your kid is good enough, smart enough, whether your kid has too many disciplinary problems, whether your kid doesn't fit the bill. It is the school's choice. It does not empower parents. And any argument that a voucher for special education kids is different is a lie. This is the worst population to throw into this voucher scheme, because once families take their kids out of the public schools and go into the private sector, they lose their federal rights, their protections to full and fair education for their kids. And they will not be served in the private schools. What will happen is they will lose a year of education, be farther behind, and these are our most vulnerable kids. It's over 11% of the population. Right now in the state of Texas, there is a scheme to make our schools look bad. First, we've cut funding, making sure that our schools and classrooms and teachers are struggling. And now we are raising the bar when it comes to accountability. We are raising the bar when it comes to college career graduation, A through F ratings. But we raised the bar after the data was in. We're raising the bar for this school year and looking at data for last school year. We didn't set this cut scores for what we would be looking at until January, but we're looking back. It applies retroactively. Know that when you see ratings come out. This is not all by accident or coincidence. There is a plan amongst some to underfund our schools, to make them look bad, and then to point the finger and say, you see, we told you so, and here's a fake ticket out. It's not real. The only ticket through for our public school kids so that they can thrive in Texas and so that they can have jobs that pay a working, pay a family supporting wage is through our public schools. And so we must fully fund our public schools that take all kids. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I was just walking in, and a good friend asked me to come speak to you today, and so thank you for having me. I see my friend Gabriel Rosales in the crowd. Back when I was a student at UTSA, his father, you'd think he had like a beret on because he was my professor, and he taught me all sorts of crazy stuff about the Chicano movement, right? But that movement was important in our history. And it was important because it was about equity. It was about the things that were lacking in the Hispanic community, the things that were lacking in our schools. Those things, not a whole lot has changed. We're still living in a world right now where the deciders, the people that are in charge of this state, the Republicans in charge of this state, want to sell us a bill of goods and a package of goods that says, oh, wait a minute, you know, everything that's bad that's happening is because of this woke education. That's what they want to tell us, right? They want to tell us that the problems of Texas are because a bunch of an invading horde is coming up from the south. That's what they want to tell us, right? But let's be really clear. These people have been in charge for 25 years now. Almost 30 years they've been in charge of what's happening in this state. The poor education outcomes, that's on them. And it's not for lack of trying. Our teachers want to do good work, and they do good work. But the lack of funding, that's on them. They want us to tell us that it's these books that we're reading. No, that's on them. And so we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of work to do. But most important, we've got to stop believing I'm sorry, there ain't any kids here, but they're bullshit lies. We've got to stop believing these lies, and we've got to start marching every day in our cities, in our towns, and getting Latinos to go vote. Getting people to go vote, because we have to change what's happening. We can walk up and down these aisles and lobby for change and knock on their doors and tell them that we want relief on common sense gun solutions so that they don't kill our children anymore in our schools. We can ask for more money for teachers, and by God, we're going to get more money this time around for sure, because we've got some, right? But under no certain terms should we allow them to continue to promulgate their lies in this state, because we deserve better. And the only way we're going to get it is by coming together every time, coming to every election, and fighting for the things that matter most. And what matters most is our children, so that they can make sure that they're getting the kinds of education that tells them that we all have a chance in this country still, because we still do, right? Despite what these people are doing, we're going to come out on top. And we're going to come out on top because we're going to win. We're going to win at the ballot box. All right, we've got a lot of work to do. I appreciate everything that you're doing, but just as Gina said, everything that they're going to try to do this session on this school voucher program. These guys have been dumbing down education for the last 30 years. They've been stripping down our schools with the increase of charter schools for the last 30 years. And now they want to have a private voucher program for rich people, as if private schools were just going to sprout up overnight. Let's be really clear who the vouchers benefit. And I hope this governor's listening, because all he wants to do is benefit rich people. Just like he benefited rich people during that electrical grid. His biggest donor gave $1 million this last campaign. That person runs a company called Energy Transfer. That person gave him a $1 million check. In 1 week after that electric grid failure, that man made $2.5 billion off our backs as people died in our communities because of their failure. So we've got a lot of work to do, but first and foremost, don't believe their bullshit. It isn't the immigrants, it's not woke kids, it's not anything. We're going to be woke, but we got to wake up at the polls, okay? So I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for being here. We've got to get out there and keep fighting for the things that matter most. That's our kids. That's making sure that we've got good health care in our state. We've got to work. So thank you all for being here. It's important. You be well. Take care.
Thank you, Senator Gutierrez. I'm now pleased to welcome our next speaker, Ovida Molina, the president of the Texas State Teachers Association, and I also want to acknowledge all the wonderful teachers in this space that she represents.
Thank you. As you heard, my name is Ovidia Molina. I am a middle school teacher by trade, proud to be able to say that, and also serving as the Texas State Teachers Association president. And I am surrounded by our members who are going to go in and lobby and make sure that they speak to the representatives about what it is that we need in education right now. What we need is for that $32.7 billion to go to our students. We love to be number one in Texas, but we're not number one. As you heard before, we are nowhere being number one in education, in our student funding, in our teacher pay, in how we treat our educators with respect. That needs to change. We need to make sure that the governor knows and understands that we are not fully funded, Governor. I don't know who told you that lie. I heard you say that we are going to continue to be fully funded if we have vouchers in Texas. The problem is we are not fully funded now. So stop with the rhetoric, stop with the lies, put your money where our children are. Put your money in the future of Texas. We need to make sure not only that we take care of our students here today, but our students in the future. It is very hard to find educators. It is very hard to find people that want to be educators. It is very hard to find an educator that says they have everything they need right now. So what we need to make sure that we do is we say no to the voucher scheme. No to the voucher scheme. Our state has repeatedly said no to vouchers, and this governor continues to bring it up. Why? Why are we continuing to attack our public schools? Why are we continuing to do less for our students, Governor? I want to make sure that we go out and speak to everybody we know to talk about the amazing things that are happening in our schools. We have amazing students. We have amazing educators. There are beautiful things happening in our schools. We, as educators, are going out and telling our stories, but we need you, our community members, to also do the same. It makes me so happy and proud to be here with a group of people that are pro-public schools. Why are we having an argument? Everybody should be pro-public schools. The majority of our students, over 5 million kids in Texas, go to our public schools. Stop starving our schools, start funding our schools, start treating our educators with respect, and make education number one for our students and for Texas. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Paige. My name is Fatima Menendez, and I am an attorney with the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund. For over 50 years, MALDEF has conducted litigation and policy work across the nation and here in Texas on behalf of Latino, English learner, and low-income students to provide access to adequate and equitable educational opportunities. It is an honor to be here today with our allies in the Texas Legislative Education Equity Coalition and with Representative Hinojosa and Senator Gutierrez to advocate for access to a public education for all students, urge the improvement of public education for all students, and to encourage the state of Texas to foster diversity in K-12 schools and college campuses. MALDEF and our allies have long advocated at the Texas Capitol for legislation that will ensure Texas adequately meets the needs of our students. By failing to invest in English learner students, Texas has failed to recognize the enormous benefits that students with fluency in another language bring to the state. Our state should capitalize on the benefits that English learner students and their families bring to our communities and schools. It should embrace the potential by investing in these students to provide the tools necessary to succeed. For decades, MALDEF and our allies have worked to ensure equitable access to colleges. The importance of diversity cannot be understated. Diversity throughout our state and on our school campuses should be celebrated, and it must be protected. Texas should create policies to ensure equitable representation in our colleges. It should craft policies and legislation that ensure the underrepresentation of minority students is an artifact of the past. Diverse classrooms reflect the world in which we live. Ensuring equal educational opportunities moves all of us forward, not just our students. MALDEF will continue to work alongside our allies to protect diversity in our college campuses and to ensure equitable and adequate educational opportunities for all students. Thank you.
They have come for black people and brown people. They have come for people in the labor movement. They have come for our college professors. They've now come for our college staff. Tomorrow they will come for you. I'll reach out to my friends, my white friends in the rural communities, and I want you to understand what the voucher legislation means for you. It will devastate and ruin your communities. It will undermine the largest employer in many of your communities. It will dumb down the education in your communities. It will take important funding away from you and what you need to do on the local level because you're already underfunded compared to what's occurring in the urban and suburban areas. I talked to my white friends in the suburban areas. I want to let you know that they're coming for you too. That when we look at the inability to protect your communities from fracking, with the inability to stand up to big business, that if big business wants something that adversely affects your community, then you don't have the access they do. This is really about having a Texas where all people can flourish, where all people can benefit from the great resources of our state. They have sought to divide us. They believe that you are like Rumpelstiltskin, that you're sleeping through a revolution. They don't understand that you can be awakened and you can understand that your stock is tied with our stock, that you know that when they come for us today, they'll come for you tomorrow. You heard Senator Gutierrez talk earlier about the whole issue with the grid. Do you want to have a community where you can have power when you need it, when you can have heat during the winter, where you can avoid those kind of cataclysmic events that we have seen in Texas much too often? You see that the current leadership will not address that because they financially benefit from the system the way it is. And so what they do is they hold out red meat. They say, they believe that you're bigoted and you're racist. So therefore, we'll hold out the red meat and come out and have you go out and attack black people and brown people and delude you from the real issues of the day. But I reach out to Texas to say, this is all about where we go as a state. If we're going to have a good state to move for the advancement of all people without regard to color, your rural community, or whether you live in a suburban area, we have to come together and realize that your stock is with us. That if you want a good Texas, let's don't wait for them to come for you. Come join us and make sure they're unsuccessful so that we don't have any voucher legislation. So the professors are protected this session, so that they don't eliminate DEI, so that they don't end up changing the voting rights to where you have people punished for making innocent mistakes in voting to be punished greater than people that engage in kidnapping. We need you to say no to that because this is your state too. Thank you very much.
Black and brown people uniting against tyranny, the tyranny that you're hearing about, and the dire situation that we truly are in the state of Texas for the future, not just of ourselves, but our children and the coming generations. We need to wake up to that consciousness, wake up at the ballot box, and we need to join together. What you see here is the future. here you see the future. You see a multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy. Democracy is fragile. We have to hold on to it. Each generation has to discover democracy for itself. In this generation, what we are calling for in Black-Brown Dialogues on Policy that Gary and I co-founded, and a group of us, including some in the audience, if y'all can wave your hands, please. Those of us who are part of us, we're growing. What we want is a new Texas where Black and Brown humanity, with Black and Brown humanity being a big tent, inclusive of intersectional people, Gen Z youth, of LGBTQ, gender, rural, white, our white brothers and sisters that are allied with us so that we can stand against fascism. This is fascism that we are experiencing right now. I mean, there's no other way to say it, right? I mean, there's no other way. I guess there's other ways, but that captures it. And fascism is really the bridging of the state with the corporations. This is why Mussolini got killed, right? Because of that merging of the corporate state. Read Mussolini if you want to know about the corporate state. So what we're addressing in Black-Brown Dialogues on Policy is one, substantively create the Black-Brown Coalition. Go to our website, blackbrownpolicy.org. There's a pledge at the bottom. Sign the pledge to support diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that'll put you in our mailing list. And then we're going to have a virtual town hall. Mark your calendars on March 11th. The morning will be on DEI, the afternoon will be on ethnic studies, and we do have legislators, the Black Legislative Caucus represented and the Mexican American Legislative Caucus represented. And they also are reflecting unity and how we need to work together as peoples in this state. So the Lieutenant Governor has made attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion, as we've been hearing, in higher education and as a central part of his priorities. There is more than, this is more than the issue of academic theory, right? These proposals would hurt student programs, admissions, and deeply embedded practices that support faculty, staff, and educational programs for our Texas higher education students. State lawmakers tried to divide our K-12 classrooms last year by spreading the false information about books, teachers, and lessons. Now they are dragging the fight to our colleges and universities to try to strip them of funding, academic freedom, and key protections against discrimination. So this is what is happening. What they did to K-12 last session, they're doing it to higher ed this session. So if we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, maybe you've never heard of the term. It's actually quite simple. It does come out of civil rights. These are guidelines. They're not enforceable by law, but they're a way to diversify our academic universities, our colleges, and also the workplace. There's DEI practices in our workplaces. It's for a good economy. The research is unequivocal. It shows that if you have a diverse board, if you have a diverse working group, you do better, right? You do better. So DEI are key elements of supporting open learning in spaces of higher education. DEI initiatives help keep institutions accountable to correct past wrongs, right? They're not illegal. In fact, they're designed to address the illegality of discrimination. That's what they're there for. Like racial and gender, transgender discrimination, etc. They're helpful to admissions and envisioning a diverse student body for hiring and making universities open spaces for all students to learn and thrive. They foster inclusive spaces within the university, like ethnic studies. They're going to come after ethnic studies, by the way. They're going to come after Mexican American, African American. We already hear this echoes of this with DeSantis, right? So DEI initiatives, they foster these inclusive spaces within which difference can be addressed, right? We need these spaces in our universities. DEI, the research shows that it promotes a sense of belonging and inclusion, particularly in predominantly white institutions or in any institution where most of the faculty are Anglo, which in fact is the case today. And our teacher workforce is overwhelmingly Anglo as well, hence the importance of diversity initiatives as well in K-12 education. Attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion are blatant attempts to overturn decades of civil rights litigation to make our colleges and universities accessible to everyone who wants to learn in this society. But colleges and universities are beacons of knowledge, a foundation of democracy. So TLEEC, Black-Brown Dialogues on Policy, LULAC, NAACP, all of us, the Teachers Union, all of us, we proudly advocate today to maintain academic freedom and to preserve DEI in higher education, to keep them inclusive, democratic, and representative of the diversity and ideas and people in Texas. Thank you very much.
System more representative of our community's diversity. From Texline to Texas City and Alpine to Atlanta, Texans of all backgrounds continue to fight for the right to high-quality, free public education, just as generations of students, parents, and educators did before them. Unfortunately, our public schools and universities, foundational pieces of our democracy, are under attack. Dark, well-moneyed forces have used the last 2 years to demonize and divide our state from the educational institutions we deeply cherish. The attacks to public education and higher education in Texas are overt attempts to reverse the gains of the civil rights movement by establishing vouchers in our state and denying our students the right to culturally relevant curriculums. We won't let that happen. We stand here today united by our common identity as Texans and Americans who, like our flawed founders, know that high-quality public education is essential to making the words e pluribus unum, out of many one, a reality and not just a motto on our dollar bill. Thank you.
Those are great words to end on. I'd like to thank our IDRA staff, Thomas Marshall, Dr. Chloe Latham-Sykes, who helped put this event together. And thank you all for being here, for the work that we have done and that we're going to do. We have a legislative training happening this afternoon, so if you're here on behalf of the coalition, you're welcome to go have some lunch, and we'll reconvene this afternoon with some legislative training and some office visits. Thank you all. Adelante.